Getting started. So thanks y'all for being here for the first webinar of 2023, brought to you by Texas Realtors Commercial Committee. I am Mish Guillory, and I'm the current chair of the Commercial Committee and the commercial appointee to the Texas Realtors Executive Board of Directors. I am very pleased to introduce a friend, the Commercial Committee Vice Chair, Dr. Paula McDonald. She's our featured speaker for today's webinar, all about downtown revitalization and its impact from an economic development standpoint. She will also briefly discuss the process and resources available for having successful revitalization projects. Paula's been in the real estate business. She corrected me this year that she's been in the business 18 years, not 16. And I don't blame her. You get that's those years in there, Dr. Paula. She's got 21 years of new construction experience prior to even getting into real estate. And she's the owner of Beam and Branch Realty. She has extensive commercial real estate experience and also has experience in residential, land development, and farm and ranch transactions. Paula and her husband, Mark, have immersed themselves in the Granbury community, purchased and restored one of the historic buildings on the square, and are opening a wedding venue soon. Additionally, the McDonalds are working with a group of developers to bring a very unique housing opportunity to the area. And during the webinar, we want to let you know that we'll be tracking your questions in the question and answer box. Also, if you choose to use the chat, we'll be monitoring your questions there. Paula will wrap up around 10:45, and then she'll start answering those questions. So we're not skipping over you, but we're letting her finish her presentation, and then we'll hit those burning questions. So with that said, Paula, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And it's 12:45, right? We're not going to go back in time.
12:45, yes. You know, I'm always trying to get more time in there.
I know, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. No, I'm super excited to do this presentation again, because I know not everybody can come to the Texas Realtors Conference. So being able to present today is great. And I do want to say that the building that's right there in the middle, that building took the place of what we were going to do was the wedding venue. And then this is a corner building on our square, and we'd already done one building. So this was actually our second project that we just finished. That was one of those conversations that you have that says, I've been trying to sell this business. I've been telling people what they could do with it. Go home and say to my husband, why aren't we doing it? And so that's part of this story, is this last big project of, we've just fallen in love with the city of Granbury and the historic status. I actually grew up here, and I'll show you a picture at the end, but this building here in the middle that we just finished, that actually, when I was growing up in high school, was the Masonic Lodge. And all of those windows you see on the bottom were bricked over. And so this building has gone through quite a transformation, and I'm excited to share it with you. But of course, with any project, there are bumps and bruises along the way. And as you guys know, in real estate, HGTV makes everything look like it's so much fun and so easy to go knock a wall out. And we know the reality of that is not the case. So in this presentation, the real focus is bringing back community and driving economic development, because you all that are here in Texas know the beautiful cities and towns that are all over this state. And so many of them that when we drive through, I'm always, of course, looking at the buildings, and so sad to see so many of them in disrepair and crumbling. And I think what we can all do as commercial realtors is be not only a resource for our investors who want to do this, but also to be community liaisons and to help these small towns get back up on the map and find ways that they can generate economic revenue and tax base for these small communities. So without further ado, let me go through. I am going to go through three main processes or three main divisions, and that is to identify the project or the property. Then you've got to investigate, and then the fun starts, and that's where we implement. So we're going to just dive right into the first big one is identification. And whether this is, again, for you, if you're wanting to do this, or if you're wanting to guide your clients, or both, the first big thing, and it seems like I shouldn't have to say this, but we know we've got a lot of people from California coming in to Granbury, and they don't know our community. And that goes for somebody who's from Midland or anywhere else. They don't know Granbury. And so that is vital. That is the first big, you've got to get in there and get to know the people, the commerce, what's happening in that city, what is the tourism, if any, and the local government. And we'll get into tourism just a bit, because you may be, or your people that are investing may be the people that actually cause the tourism. And if you go back and look at Fredericksburg's history, there was virtually no tourism there 50 years ago. And due to what's happened, you all know that have been out to Fredericksburg, know with the wineries and the B&Bs and all of that just evolved through the 80s and the 90s and on into present day. That has happened because of downtown revitalization and revitalization of the entire community. So you guys, we have an opportunity, I believe, to really go in and find some diamonds in the rough and help revive some of these little bitty towns. So let me go into the next slide, and we're still talking about identification. And so you guys have an advantage here, and this is why you can be a huge resource to those who think, okay, I want to do this. This will be super fun. And it always sounds like fun. And I've said that renovation is kind of like a 9-month pregnancy. At first, you're super excited. Oh, yay, let's go. Let's pick out our baby room colors and the names and do all that fun stuff. Mid-trimester, you're moving along, you're feeling a little better. But by the end, you are ready for that baby to be born, and you are kind of cranky because there's all kinds of things that are cropping up. So this building here on the right, that was actually the first building that we remodeled, we bought and remodeled, and it currently houses my real estate office downstairs. And then we have a long-term tenant who runs the winery next door, which is really convenient. And he lives in our apartment upstairs. So being in commercial real estate, you guys have the advantage of knowing and understanding the existing real estate market in your area. And if you don't, that's where you start. As you know, you've got to dig in and find out what is available, the historical implications, if any, the condition, of course, and the potential investment and renovations that are going to be needed. And that's probably one of the most difficult is to determine, because if you've done any projects, you know, when you rip something out, we don't know what's behind that wall. We don't know what we're going to find. In fact, I will share with you a quick little story on this building particularly. We actually were working on it, and we had to take the entire ceiling from the downstairs, which means the floor from the upstairs, out because it was sagging and it was being held up by, seriously, some 2x4s. And so we found out the reason why it was sagging. But once we went in and realized, okay, we have to take this whole floor and ceiling out and redo it, they came out and they showed me these bones. And I used to be a biology and anatomy and physiology teacher, and they showed me these bones and said, hey, these just fell out of the ceiling. And I said, let me look at those. They were human vertebrae, and they were very old. They were yellow and porous, been there a long time, along with this other, yes, bones. And so my husband says, don't tell anybody, they'll shut our project down. And of course, I went to high school with the police chief's wife. And so I tell her the story, and he comes up, puts his arm around my husband, says, do we have something to talk about? But I'm just telling you this story because you guys, you never know what you're going to find in these buildings. It's been really interesting. And then at the back of this building, around the door frame, there were yet more bones. So I'm weird, and I have them in a baggie in my desk. If you ever want to come to Granbury and see them, I'll show them to you. But it's claimed that Jesse James is buried in Granbury. So who knows the story, but we could all make up great stuff. But I like to share that story because it's just the realness of these crazy projects. And who knows if these walls could talk and tell us the amazing stories that have happened. But it is important when you're going into these projects to be ready for anything, because I've seen it all. And I do want to back up just a minute. These two buildings on the square were not actually my first renovation projects. Back in 1996, before Chip and Jo, I actually moved an old farmhouse from Hearne, Texas, cut it in 3 pieces, cut the roof off, moved it to Montgomery, Texas on a farm and renovated it. And we actually won a Better Homes and Gardens Renovation Award. So that was I've been doing this a long time, and more in houses. So now we've really jumped into the renovation of these downtowns. So anyway, that's not a pat on the back. It's we really have seen a lot and done a lot. And there's a lot of fun stories that go with it. So let's move on. And the other part of identification is to ask the questions. What businesses would this community need? What would thrive here? Because you can look at a great old structure or building and think, oh man, this would be so great for a furniture store. But in a little bitty tiny community, that may not be the right fit. What seems to be a really big fit for most communities is, of course, a restaurant. And that is if you have enough people to work the restaurant in that community. A lot of people are doing wine tasting rooms. In fact, the one next to us is out of Fredericksburg. Their main place is on the main strip there in Fredericksburg. And so they have a tasting room now in Granbury, along with McKinney and I think Georgetown and Round Rock. So it's a really great way to tap into some tap in winery. Sorry. I know y'all are all laughing hysterically. Please work with me on this. I need the laughter every now and then. And so when you go to these businesses, you can say, I've got this great little town that could possibly use a wine tasting room or a brewery where you don't have to do the whole big, vats and all of that. You just bring it in, you bring those bottles in, and those wine rooms are doing very, very well. And what I've seen is they're successful. They're pretty easy to set up and get going because you just need the product and renovate the building. You don't have to do a lot of deep renovations because it's just a big open room. So anyway, that is a great question to ask. What businesses will thrive here? So you need to assess the needs of the community. Get together with community leaders and other business owners and brainstorm with them. That's one of the best things you can do. Speak with the city council members, get to know them. Who's the mayor? Who's running your chamber of commerce there? All of those people we have found to be great assets to us. And it behooves us to get to know them and to understand this community on a deeper level, but also to allow them to give you input to, because I know being a business owner on our square, I can tell you right now, there's another building being renovated. And the main thing I've said that's needed in that downstairs is we need another good restaurant. And so hopefully that's what they'll adhere to. We don't need another gifty gift shop, because those become overrun. And I call them loving hands at home shops, which all little towns have, but we just don't need too many of them. So anyway, asking those questions and finding out what businesses will thrive, that is the first part and the last part of this identification part of what businesses you need, what are the buildings, and all of that fun stuff. So now we're going to go into the CSI portion, which is the investigative part. And this is really very, very important, especially for us as real estate practitioners. And you guys know this from showing property. And of course, we're not inspectors. Maybe some of you guys are, but we have to be really careful with, hey, just rip this wall out and do this. You never know that if you rip that wall out, that's going to be a main support structure. And you could cause the buildings that are connected to start to have issues. So it's important that you start to investigate the potential environmental and structural issues, because one of the things we've been faced with both of these projects is asbestos, mold, foundation, structural, and roof. And they're different than they are in the residential market. And the asbestos piece of it can be very, very expensive. And right now, I can tell you it is hard. You guys may have some great resources, but it's hard to get a lot of these people with asbestos and mold experience and some of the structural engineers out to these small towns. So it may take you a lot longer to do some of this investigative than if you're in a large city, because we have to schedule them in, get them to come in. And then also that can cause the cost to drive up a bit because they're having to come out to you. But these are important aspects. And I like to do these things as part of a due diligence. If I'm putting in a letter of intent to a potential owner, I want to be able to say, I need to do these studies. And based upon these studies is going to be whether we move forward or whether we change our offer. And for instance, this picture that you're looking at, that's the part of the downstairs of this building we just purchased. And when we went in and had the asbestos, thankfully, there were no asbestos findings. And so I did not have to go back to the owner and negotiate, look, we're going to have to do a huge asbestos removal process, and that's going to be very, very costly. Therefore, it really can change the structure of your offer, depending on if you're getting the building for a song or it's expensive and you're really having to negotiate some of those things. So it is super important. Yeah. Do you have an obligation to turn the old bones over to the Historic Society? No, everybody knows about the bone story now, but nobody's asking for them. The police chief doesn't want them either. So I keep them as relics. But anyway, so back to the investigation. I think out of all of these, those of you, I was in the Houston market for 35 years. So I do know the mold issue is a huge one down there, but up here in our DFW area, we don't have it quite as much. I don't see it as much as I saw it in Houston, but this part of the investigation is critical and crucial prior to moving forward with any project. You want to go in with your eyes wide open. Also, part of the investigation are looking into if the city has any development requirements. Now, a lot of people would think Granbury is this small little town and therefore we don't have a very developed developmental requirement department, but we do. Actually, Granbury did a good job and spent a lot of money early on. And they have a great website where you can go on and any developer can go in and pull the different areas and look into exactly what it is required for the different types of projects. And we have a wonderful map system that shows you what things are zoned. But I would probably bet that most of these little bitty towns, like I know around us and in Hood County, there's a little bitty town called Lipan and another one called Toller. And I don't think either one of those would have anything near the zoning and developmental aspects to it. And therefore, it's probably in some of those little towns a lot easier to just go in and buy a building and get going. But in a city like Granbury or McKinney or Frisco or any of these that do have some of these little small historic sections, you're going to be dealing with very advanced developmental requirements. And so you're going to need help with that, and you're going to need to actively engage with your zoning, your P&Z people, and your city inspectors. And we have found that getting to know them personally, they're a lot more willing to work with you than people coming in, oh, I'm from the Houston market, I've done all of this commercial, blah, blah, blah. These small towns really don't care. They want to know who you are. And so I have seen a lot of brazen attitudes come and go because they have not been welcomed with open arms. So that is a conversation I like to have with investors, is if you're working with these small towns, please respect and understand how important it is to work with these people. And yes, they aren't going to be like working with the big cities. It's going to be different. So if you want to do this project, it's important that you understand how to work with them and how important it is to forge relationships. And we all know that that is essential. So there's another question on the floor. What kind of investment tax credits did you seek? Did you get any of the properties listed on National Registry or historic places? So John, I will be getting into that part here in just a minute. So if you'll just hang with me, I'll talk about that part in just a minute, but those are great questions. Also is learning the restrictions and the guidelines that that particular city has. They may have, for instance, in Granbury, we have our little carved out historic district. And a lot of towns have that. And so you can move a block over and the restrictions will be different than they are for the historic part. And that is going to be crucial for you to understand, because obviously if you've got a building with a historical marker, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. So John actually helped segue right into that. So when you're looking at historical limitations, and I want you to look at this picture, you guys, that building with the people standing out on top, that's our building. Can you believe they just stood out there? They didn't have very many safety regulations back then. Maybe one of them fell, and that's their bones that I have in my building. Who knows? But anyway, so you do have to look at the established historical marker situation. And for us, interestingly, we have historical markers all over our town and our square, but there are none on our buildings. So in a way, for us and these two buildings, it made it much easier for us to go in and redo these buildings, because when you have an established historical marker, now you've got, if it's a state or a national marker, there are different guidelines that you have to follow to keep that building. I mean, they'll tell you that there's certain things you can and cannot do. And so that does change the game a little bit. And so it's important when you're working with your investors to point that out, that, and it actually can be a blessing or it can be a curse. And for us right now, we are going to be working on, now that we've finished the project, now getting the historical markers, because they can't come back and tell us, no, you can't add that awning or that balcony, which, as you can see from these original pictures, there weren't balconies, and now there's balconies all over because people like to come out and watch the parades, but you obviously need a railing. So anyway, it's important to know what are the historical limitations. If you have a historical commission or group in your city. And for Granbury, we have a historical commission. It's made up of people that are selected by our city council and our mayor, and they're asked to be on this historical commission. And so when projects are coming forward, these are the people that are going to be asking those hard questions. What are you doing? What colors are you going to paint the building? All of those types of things are important. So you need to find out in whatever area you're looking in what those groups are. And another group that has been really interesting to work with, and I don't know that many cities have them, but here in Granbury, we have what's called the what do we call it? The Historic Merchants Association. And what it is are all the merchants that are on the square, and we all work together, and we have our own little organization, and we help promote events, and we work together with other businesses so we know what's going on the square. And they are a huge resource. And if any city has them, that has this type of organization that you are working with or your clients are working with, you want to get involved. You want to get to know who the merchants are. They're going to be your best friends, because it helps all of us when we know what's coming, what building is coming, and we love it when we can visit with them and help them with their ideas and help them with what's going to happen on the square. And so everybody has a vested interest. So part of your investigation is then to also, obviously, unless you just have lots of cash, is being able to seek any kind of assistance that's out there. And that can be obviously through private banks or your local banks. Local banks too, I will tell you, here for a local project like this, a local bank is often your very best resource for finance. They like to see the money going into their own town. And so we've found that has been huge. Also, somebody asked about the grants, and there are a lot of grants. If you have the time and the energy or somebody to do that for you, there are historical grants, there are downtown revitalization grants. There is a group, and a lot of you may want to write this down. I don't think I have it in this video or in this series, but it's called the Texas Downtown. Oh, I can't remember. If you just Google Texas Downtown group or organization, they are wonderful. And it is a group of people from downtowns all over the state that have their own organization. And I know they have a wonderful project-based awards each year, and those awards have money with them. And so there are groups like that. And then there's the Texas Historic Commission and the National Historic Commission and things like that that are looking for projects. You just have to have the time to look into those and to seek them out. But if you've ever written a grant, you understand what I'm talking about. It takes a lot of time. And if your work for us, we were working and spending so much of our energy and time on our actual projects. We didn't have time to do that because, of course, time is money. Thank you for putting that, Shannon. Time is money. And when you start that project, you want to get it finished as quickly as you can so that you can start having a return on your income, on your investment. So anyway, renovation experts are essential and they're hard to find. I will tell you that. And that's why my husband and he and I go in this together. He's got his area. He deals more with the cities and the inspectors. I'm more on the design project and the vision of what we think this building could be. And so we make a great team, but we're actually getting called by a lot of people to come and help them. And we like doing that because we have this love for our state and these beautiful little towns, and seeing these renovation projects thrive is it just helps all of us. And so I will leave you at the end of this. If you would like to talk to myself or my husband, I'll have our contact information. And we like to make field trips, and we want you guys to come and do a field trip with us too, because seeing is the best way, getting your feet on the dirt of what you're doing. So we've talked about finding out, identifying the property, and now investigating. And we're going to get now into the really fun part of it, and that is the implementation. And this picture here on the left, that is my real estate office as we were in the process of finishing it. And I have another picture for you. It was really dark. That was the sagging ceiling where the bones were. And my vision was to create a very open concept, light and bright, and bring some life into this space, which we've done. So the first steps of implementation are, as you guys know in this business, and a lot of people sadly miss this important step. But even if you have cash people, or you have people who are needing to go in for financing, obviously a bank is going to require a business plan. And that is essential. You just cannot do this project without going into a good business plan. And there's a lot of people out there that can help you with that. We can offer assistance with that too. And then, of course, to set a budget. I think this is the hardest part, because there are so many unknowns in these old buildings that you don't know what's going to stop a project, like bones. Luckily, it didn't stop our project. But so setting a budget is difficult. So you really have to put into a budget a big bucket over here for the unknowns. You must do that, because I've seen too many projects. People get excited, they get going, and then boom, they run into that asbestos or mold or another weird thing. And now their project is sitting and they're not making any money, and they owe the bank money. And so it is that the budget part is very critical. And then, of course, you've got to acquire the property and then have a good timeline. And again, in these small cities, it is very hard to, that's another thing you need to establish is, if you're there, you need to join a local builders association and get to know the builders and their contractors, get to know the contractors. I've seen too many and heard too many stories of people, and y'all know this in residential renovation and everything else, where people get ripped off all the time. And so it happens, unfortunately, in the renovation business as well. There's a lot of sharks out there. And so you need to be heads up on that. But a timeline is really essential and crucial for keeping your project moving forward so that you can get it finished. So getting to that finish line, that is the goal. And that picture I showed you with the ripped up carpet just a few slides back, this is the finished space now. And again, lots of light, lots of beautiful windows that were covered up. But getting to that finish line is overcoming the obstacles. The biggest obstacles that we found are the ones dealing with your city, the city councils, the P&Zs, all of those types of people are the ones where you're going to get the most roadblocks. The city inspector, he'll come in 1 week and tell you, I saw this. And then you think, okay, we'll fix that. And then we're ready to go. The next week he comes and now he sees something else. And you're like, why didn't you tell us that before? And so the obstacles can really become difficult. And at the finish line, you are anxious to get your doors open, or your owner's ready to get the doors open, or be able to lease the space out so that you can start making money. And so one of the things to help you get to that finish line too is enlisting the community. Get them involved, get them to come out and help open these doors with a big celebration. You will not believe how your groups will come together to help you, especially your Chamber of Commerce. You want to have that big ribbon cutting, and any of these other groups to come together, they will help you. They will want to see you open with success. And that, of course, is the most fun. And building that sense of excitement. One of the things we did, you guys, while we were doing the project, is people would come by constantly. What's going to happen here? What are they going to do? And we made huge posters that we put on the front windows of the building so they could go around and read the story of what the building was, what our plans were, what our timeline, and just to get people excited, how to join up on our Facebook page so that they could watch the progress. And so that's something that's really fun to do. And as a real estate agent or broker, you can even put your information on those posters, do them for your client. If you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your client as a business expense. And, brought to you by, Paula McDonald, Beam & Branch Realty. And here's what my clients are doing. And that gives you some great, whatever we're talking about, getting good organization and get eyes on your business too. And so they see that you are the type of agent that has a lot more than just, you're not just that sales agent. You're actually a really great resource and helping that person get that business open. So that's a lot of the fun part. So now I want to just kind of go through and show you in our last few minutes before we do some questions, just some of the before and after. And again, we have to be really cognizant of the colors that are chosen because it's a historic square, and making sure that we're not really changing the outside look of the building. But it was, this is partway through on the picture on your left, and it was called the downtown store. It was just kind of a junk store. And then that's our Chavot Land Company is just the name of our LLC that we purchase our property from. So we just put that up there, kind of look cool. And then you can see we added our railing and just cleaned it up, just gave it a fresh face. The paint colors before were a peach color on the trim work and a really ugly green. So we were able to go into the city and convince them that those colors needed to be fresh and better. So we did that. This is the inside, and this, I don't have the picture of, it would be more of where I'm standing, of the one brace that's holding up the ceiling, but where it was really sagging is for more where I am. But you can see how dark the space was. And that's what a lot of people are afraid of in these interior buildings, because now we've bought an interior one, meaning the ones that are in the middle of the square. And now we've also, our last project was on a corner. So we had a lot more natural light. And so this was my goal. And this is one thing that a lot of people are afraid of purchasing these long linear interior buildings because they're, oh my gosh, they're so dark. And what can we do? But this is a perfect example of what you can do. And the key is not building a bunch of small offices and shutting out that natural light and just letting it in. And for the type of business that I was doing, it worked out. And these floors that we put in on the right-hand picture, this was one of the few buildings on the square that actually has not wooden floors, but somebody had come in and filled it with concrete. When I went to high school, this storefront was the Hood County News. And so that because of all their heavy printers, they had filled it in with concrete, which made it great for us. We just came in and did a concrete finish, and I wanted it to look like driftwood, and the guy was able to do it for me. So that's how that space turned out. And you can see the cutouts on the wall, so that there was already plaster on that particular wall, but we have such beautiful stone that just chipping it away like that just was able to see some of the beautiful stonework without having to do the whole stone wall, because that would have been a ton of work. We were able to do it on the other building, but anyway, and people love it. They come in and go, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But it was really a cheaper route for us. So Then this is our last building that we just did, and that's the corner building. It's what it on the left, it had it, the picture you're seeing on the left is how it looked when we purchased it, but right after we tore off, they had a corrugated metal, awning that was hideous. And so that was one of the first things I wanted taken off. And because we were creating the retail downstairs and we were creating the hotel, which is a 7-room boutique hotel upstairs, because as you know, that's generating great income. We wanted that to be able to have, if people wanted to go sit out on the balcony or watch a parade from the balcony, we'd have that option. So we named it Inn on the Square because I'm a visual marketing brain. And a lot of people are like, why is it Inn on the Square and not INN? But if you look at it, and if you just took the on the square off, it is an inn on a square, Inn on the Square. So that's what I came up with. It's great for marketing soaps and on your robe and all that kind of stuff too. So makes it easy, keeping it simple. This is the space I showed you before. That's the downstairs retail. And we have a home decor shop that's on the corner. And that was something that Granbury lacked. We have a lot of gifty shops, but we have all these people moving in from California. And what we're finding is they're leaving all of their belongings, selling them with the house. And so home decor was a much needed little place that people can come. We actually sell fixtures now and things like that because they're finding us and coming in and buying tables and sofas and all kinds of things. So it may work in Granbury, but not work somewhere else, but just because of the type of people that are moving in. And again, lots of light. This is upstairs in the lobby. And so the upstairs was really easy for us because it was one big open space and it had pillars going down the middle. We were able to incorporate every single pillar into one of the walls so you didn't see them except for one room. And so we have this one room with the pillar. And so there's all kinds of funny stories people say about that. But we wanted to create a beautiful lobby area, and the hotel is not a manned hotel. We don't have a person working the desk. We kept it very easy, kind of a hybrid Airbnb type thing / hotel. And so everybody books online. They get a code for the front door and a code for their room. And then, of course, if they need something, they can reach out to us. So we wanted to keep the elements of this building with open rafters. And that was a project just to take all of the drywall up and around those rafters. The drywall guys did not like me, but I wanted to keep that element. I think it adds to just the uniqueness of the building. And then all of the stone walls just are absolutely beautiful and stunning. So we wanted to keep that. And we kept the wood floors wherever we could. There was evidence of a fire in part of it. So some of it we had to go in and put the luxury vinyl plank. And we chose that product because it is easier to keep and it still looks beautiful. This is one of the bedrooms on the corner. And so all of our rooms kind of have that look. And if you want to go look at our website, it's innonthesquaregranbury.com. And I have videos there of a before video, a mid-project video, and a finished video, of course, then with all the rooms. And so before we get into questions, I just want to tell you guys, you have an open invitation. If you just need to come and meet with my husband and I, and we'll take you through our projects. We want to share as much of our information with any of you to help you with your projects. So questions. I know you want me to go ahead and just tackle that next question, Mish? It says, rather than a developer looking for opportunities, do you ever find that CDCs or TERs have their eyes set of areas or buildings they would like to see improved in their respective zones? In other words, can they guide developers, investors to the right projects? It depends. I mean, that's a great question, but it's a hard one because you've got different cities with different standards and different ideas. And what we have found is that most city councils members, they're made up of people like us, but not all of them are real estate people. And a lot of them don't have the vision that we have. They just don't. And so we have to create that vision for them. So I think it would be great if you had some people like that, but we haven't run into that. We've had to convince people, hey, we're bringing this great project and this is what our city needs. And so it's a big sales job. And so are our projects being delayed by supply issues anymore, or is that slowing down at all? And yes, we're currently building a house right now, but we're through that. We bought this building right in the heat of COVID. And so that was not great timing, but none of us knew what was going to happen then. And so what we were able to do was really utilize a lot of the wood that we took out of the building. We were able to, from the downstairs, we were able to use to frame up for upstairs, because right when we did this project, y'all know what happened to wood. It went up crazy, but this wood that we were able to take and redo upstairs saved us a ton of money and helped us not run into the supply chain issues. But right now we are seeing they're really leveling out. I'm not seeing that nearly as much. I wouldn't recommend starting a project like this like we did, but at the same time, a lot of the contractors they didn't have anything to do. So they were able to come and do our project at that time.
Dr. McDonald, thank you very much for our presentation. If anyone else has questions, I've been pulling questions from the Q&A box, but if anyone else has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or using the Q&A box. And Dr. McDonald has done the one thing that someone else also asked: can we get her contact information? And I believe there was an invitation to come visit. Does that mean we get to stay in one of these lovely places?
Yes, come and see us. We love to show people around. We love to have people come and stay with us. We've actually had a lot of investors who are seeking us out. And the show 1923, that's the offshoot from Yellowstone.
I haven't watched Yellowstone yet, so I'm getting there. Okay.
Taylor Sheridan, he's from Texas, and he's looking at our hotel to possibly be used in one of their projects, one of their upcoming projects, which we would love, because that would put us on the map. We would love it. And they really, Taylor Sheridan does a great job of trying to use Texas towns, and then he'll superimpose the mountains and stuff in the background. So they did do 18. Part of that was in Granbury. We were just in the process of our building, so we didn't get to do that.
So we need to come out there, hang out with you, establish a friendship, so we can say celebrity.
No celebrity. might come. But I want to leave you with this one last thing, and that is I say that restoration restores the story for the community. And that is me in one of those cheerleading outfits in front of that building that I now own when I was in high school. What are the odds of that? Somebody found that picture and brought it to me. And you see, it was a lodge. It was all bricked over downstairs. It's the same building. So pretty cool. Anyway, it's such an honor to be able to visit with you all. As you can tell, we're passionate about what we're doing, and we want to help other communities. So if you need me to come, you just tell me, give me a call. We'd love to come out, and we love to look at projects and put our eyes on it and help other people see their dreams come true. Because by doing this, you guys, we really are taking a resource that's there and just not developed and putting new life into these communities. And so super fun. I'd love to help you.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much. We're maybe 9 minutes ahead of schedule, but that is fantastic. I see a lot of love going out to you, Paula, in the chat. So make sure you get all that love before we disappear. If anyone has any final questions, go ahead and drop that in there. But if not, if you appreciated what you saw today, by all means, definitely place that in the chat. And we do thank you for your time and attention today.
Yes, thank you all. I hope to meet you all soon and hope to see you at winter meeting.